The Egerton Gospel refers to a collection of 3 papyrus fragments of a codex of a previously unknown gospel, found in Egypt and sold to the British Museum in 1934. The physical fragments are now dated to the very end of the 2nd century CE. Together they comprise one of the oldest surviving witnesses to any gospel or any codex. The British Museum lost no time in publishing the text. Acquired in the summer of 1934, it was in print in 1935. It is also called the Unknown Gospel, as no ancient source makes reference to it. In addition to being entirely unknown before its publication, the fragmentary manuscript forms part of the Egerton collection in the British Library. A 4th fragment of the same manuscript has since been identified in the papyrus collection of the University of Cologne. Contents: the surviving fragments include 4 stories. 1. A controversy similar to John chapter 5 verses 39 to 47 and 10:31–39. 2. Curing a leper similar to Matt 8:1–4, Mark chapter 1 verses 40 to 45, Luke chapter 5 verses 12 to 16 and Luke chapter 17 verses 11 to 14. 3. A controversy about paying tribute to Caesar analogous to Matt 22:15–22, Mark chapter 12 verses 13 to 17, Luke chapter 20 verses 20 to 26, and 4. An incomplete account of a miracle on the Jordan River bank, perhaps carried out to illustrate the parable about seeds growing miraculously. The latter story has no equivalent in canonical Gospels. Jesus walked and stood on the bank of the Jordan River. He reached out his right hand and filled it, ... and he sowed it on the and then water, ... and before their eyes, and it brought forth fruit, many, ... for joy. Date of composition: John B. Daniels writes the following in his introduction in the Complete Gospels. On the one hand, some scholars have maintained that Egerton's unknown author composed by borrowing from the canonical Gospels. This solution has not proved satisfactory for several reasons. The Egerton Gospel's parallels to the Synoptic Gospels lack editorial language peculiar to the synoptic authors, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They also lack features that are common to the Synoptic Gospels, a difficult fact to explain if those Gospels were Egerton's source. On the other hand, suggestions that the Egerton Gospel served as a source for the authors of Mark and/or John also lack conclusive evidence. The most likely explanation for the Egerton Gospel's similarities and differences from the canonical Gospels is that Egerton's author made independent use of traditional sayings and stories of Jesus that also were used by the other Gospel writers. Such traditional sayings are posited for the hypothetical Q document. Ronald Cameron states, since Papyrus Egerton II displays no dependence upon the Gospels of the New Testament, its earliest possible date of composition would be sometime in the middle of the 1st century, when the sayings and stories which underlie the New Testament first began to be produced in written form. The latest possible date would be early in the 2nd century, shortly before the copy of the extant papyrus fragment was made. Because this papyrus presents traditions in a less developed form than John does, it was probably composed in the second half of the 1st century, in Syria, shortly before the Gospel of John was written. Helmut Koester and J.D. Crossan have argued that despite its apparent historical importance, the text is not well known. It is a mere fragment, and does not bear a clear relationship to any of the 4 canonical Gospels. The Egerton Gospel has been largely ignored outside a small circle of scholars. The work cannot be dismissed as apocrypha or heretical without compromising the orthodoxy of the Gospel of John. nor can it be classed as Gnostic and dismissed as marginal. It seems to be almost independent of the Synoptic Gospels and to represent a tradition similar to the canonical John, but independent of it. Additionally, it tells us an otherwise unknown miracle, in the Johannine manner. Conservative scholar Craig Evans supports a date for Egerton Gospel later than the canonical Gospels in a variety of ways. He finds many parallels between the Egerton Gospel and the canonical Gospels that include editorial language particular to Matthew and Luke, while codex.The argues that these show a tradition before the other Gospels. Craig Evans sees these as drawing from the other Gospels just as Justin Martyr did. He also finds words such as the plural priests that show lack of knowledge of Jewish customs.